Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Alex, and today I'm going to give you my ultimate 30-day plan to improve the health of your kidneys and, by extension, every other organ system in your body. Because the kidneys are deeply connected to everything else. And let me just say this, if you follow everything I suggest in this video for the next 30 days, it would be biologically very difficult for your health not to improve. The truth is that most people have no idea their kidneys are actually struggling because kidney disease is pretty much always silent. And the first thing to do is to buy my new kidney supplement. I'm only joking. What I'm going to do today is give you a proper framework, not just a list of hacks or supplements. And everything in this video is actually grounded in the current evidence-based guidelines from bodies like NICE, which is the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, the NHS, and also the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. What I'm trying to say is that this isn't just my personal opinion, it's what the research actually supports, and you can check out the links in the description below if you want to read more about that. This is a real structured, evidence-based 30-day plan with a start point, a process, and a way to actually measure whether it's working or not. We're going to cover hydration, your diet, your blood pressure, your exercise levels, your sleep, and also some medications that might be quietly doing some damage. And we're doing this through 5 pillars, introduced one at a time every few days so you're not overwhelmed. Build one habit, cement it in, and then add the next one. So by the end of the 30 days, you've got all 5 running together. But before any of that, we need to talk about the most important step, the one that almost everyone skips. So phase 1 is all about knowing where you stand. This is days 1 to 5. So before you change a single thing, what we need is data. Because without a baseline, you're just sort of guessing. You won't know what's driving your problem. You won't know which pillars matter most for you specifically. And at the end of the 30 days, you won't actually know if what you've done has worked. Now, some of you might be thinking, why on earth does this take 5 days? Getting a blood test is, well, for most people, a phone call. If you're in the UK, then probably not. But this phase isn't just about getting a blood test. It's about getting the results, hopefully having a conversation with the doctor about what they mean, and then actually sitting with that information for a few days. You need to read about your results, look up what those numbers mean, watch some videos from doctors that you trust, and start thinking honestly about your own lifestyle, what's driving this, what you're actually eating, how much you're moving day to day, what your stress levels are like. Use this time at the very beginning to get your head into the right place and get prepared, because from day 6 onwards, you start making real changes, and it helps to go in with some sort of understanding of what you're actually dealing with. So the first thing I want you to do is actually book a blood test. So in the UK, you can go to your GP and ask for a kidney function panel or renal function, what we often call a U's and E's, urea and electrolytes. Now, I completely understand that it's difficult to get a GP appointment these days. But most GPs should do this without too much trouble if you explain that you're concerned about your kidney health. Now, elsewhere, this is a fairly straightforward private blood test. It doesn't cost a lot at all, and it's honestly absolutely worth doing. Now, what are we actually looking for on this blood test? So let me walk you through the key markers here. So the headline number, and this is the number that we're fundamentally trying to change, is your eGFR, your estimated glomerular filtration rate, eGFR. So this is a measure of how efficiently your kidneys are actually filtering blood, calculated from your age, your sex, and something called your creatinine levels. And it gives you a percentage of your normal kidney function. And this is the single most important marker of kidney health. And everything we do across these 30 days is pointed at this number, your eGFR. So above 90 is considered normal. Between 60 and 90 is mildly reduced. Below 60, and we're sort of in chronic kidney disease territory at this point. Below 15, and we're talking about kidney failure. And obviously, if this is a new discovery with this blood test, then I'll be very surprised if you haven't already spoken to a doctor at this point. Most people watching this will be somewhere in that 60 to 90 bracket and genuinely not know about it. Now, the second blood test I want you to get is your HbA1c, and I've done lots of videos on this in the past. So this is your 3-month average blood sugar. It's a window into whether insulin resistance or poorly controlled blood sugar is part of your story. And here's why this matters so much. The leading cause of chronic kidney disease worldwide is type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. We know that high blood sugar over time damages the tiny filtering vessels inside your kidney. So if your eGFR is low and your HbA1c is elevated, then you've very likely identified your main driver, and diet and blood sugar control needs to be your priority. It gives you so much information. If your eGFR is low but your HbA1c is completely normal, then blood sugar clearly isn't the primary issue and we have to focus elsewhere. Now, this blood panel will also show your creatinine and your urea, which are waste products that the kidneys should be filtering out, plus your electrolytes, which the kidneys tightly regulate. It's also worth asking for a urine ACR, which is your albumin to creatinine ratio, which picks up protein leaking into your urine, often before the eGFR even drops. And also a full blood count to check for anemia, which the kidneys also influence. So there's a lot of blood tests there, but just wait for the summary slide at the end of this section and I'll go through that again. And whatever your results show, you need to go through them with a doctor. Not Google, not a Reddit forum or something like that. You need to talk through it with your doctor. This video is a lot of information and I'm hoping it will help a lot of people, but unless they are completely normal, then you need to discuss your results with your own doctor. And finally, you want your blood pressure checking. So you can either go to the GP for this, your pharmacist, or just go onto Amazon and buy a 20 quid blood pressure monitor. The way to do this is to check it consistently 2 to 3 times a day when you're nice and relaxed, measure it a couple of times each time throughout the day, write all of the numbers down and simply get an average. But please do write them down because we'll need that number later. Now, some of you at this point may have noticed that I sound a bit bunged up, and that's because I'm going through my annual cold. But I still wanted to put a video out today, so just bear with me and I'm sure we'll try and get through this in the next 20 minutes or so. Now, before we get into the 5 pillars, let me just say that we are skimming the surface with this video. Each of these pillars could be its own video, and in many cases across this channel, it already is. But basically what I'm trying to say is that this is as short a video as I can make it. I don't want to keep waffling on across all of these points. But I completely appreciate that each of these pillars deserves a much deeper explanation than we have time for today. So if you want me to go into further detail in future videos, then just pop a comment below. Now, pillar 1 is all about hydration, movement, and your food audit. And this is day 6 to 10. So 3 things in this first pillar, all of them achievable from day 1, none of them requiring a gym membership or a complete life overhaul. So let's get started on hydration. So as you know, your kidneys are a filtration system and they need fluid to work properly. When you're chronically underhydrated, and most people quietly are, your blood becomes a bit more concentrated, a bit more viscous, and your kidneys have to work harder. And the risk of kidney stones and infections both go up. Now, over years, chronic mild dehydration is genuinely associated with declining kidney function. And the mechanism is something called renal perfusion, the flow of blood through the kidney tissue. Now, good blood flow means good filtration and less stress on the nephrons, which are the tiny individual filtering units inside each kidney. You have about 1 million nephrons in each kidney, and you cannot grow new ones. So once they're gone, they are gone for good. So keeping them well perfused is absolutely fundamental here. And the target is pretty simple. Your urine should be a pale straw colour for most of the day. Dark yellow means that you're behind. And for most adults, somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5 litres a day is the right sort of ballpark, depending on your size, your climate, and activity level. And no doubt that some people will comment saying that there's no way that I could drink 2.5 litres a day. I only need 1.5 litres to make my urine clear. Well, that's absolutely fine. Everybody is different here. Now, tap water for most people is fine. Herbal teas are fine. Coffee in moderation is also okay. And I know people have strong opinions about those giant Stanley Cups that you see everywhere now. I see them all the time in the A&E. But if they encourage you to drink more water throughout the day, then fantastic. Go on Temu and get one. As long as there's no sugar in it, then it is fine. Just make hydration a habit. It has to be a fundamental part of your diet. What I do is simply drink a glass whenever I go into the kitchen, or if I'm at work, I just set a timer for every hour and drink a glass of water if I can. For most people, a glass when you wake up, one with each meal, and then one mid-morning and mid-afternoon, then you're probably there. You just need to get used to drinking more throughout the day and also going to the toilet more, because that is a sign that it's working. Now, the second part of this pillar is movement, and I need to be quite clear here. This isn't about exercise just yet. We come back to exercise properly in pillar number 4. This is about something called NEAT, N-E-A-T, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is a complicated way of saying all of the movement that you do that isn't structured exercise. So walking to the shops, taking the stairs, standing up from your desk, pottering around the house, the housework, fidgeting when you're standing, all of the movement that isn't sitting down and isn't structured exercise. And this one matters more than most people realize, because prolonged sitting is independently associated with worse metabolic markers, higher blood pressure, and reduced blood flow, including through the kidneys. The honest truth is that modern life has made us all extraordinarily sedentary in a way that our grandparents and great-grandparents simply weren't. Before cars and computers and remote controls and food delivery, just getting through a normal day involved a huge amount of physical movement, but we don't get that anymore. We've engineered almost all of that out of our lives, and our bodies are now paying for it. So the goal here is to claw some of that back. Increase your daily steps if you can. Disrupt your sitting. If you're desk bound, then set an alarm every hour and get up. Do some squats, walk to the kitchen, go outside for 5 minutes. A 10-minute walk after meals, or preferably 15 to 30 minutes if you can, this has a massive effect on your blood sugar, one of the most well-replicated findings in metabolic research. And this blood sugar effect directly protects the kidney filtering units that we talked about earlier. Now, if you want a really easy way to track all of this, then you can get a really basic fitness watch for less than £20 these days. You don't need something like a Garmin. If you're not exercising regularly or training for some sort of race, then you can literally go on Amazon or just type into Google a fitness watch, and I promise you there will be something for less than £20 or $30 in the US. It will track your steps, your sleep, your resting heart rate, all of which are genuinely really useful markers in this context. And it will show you in black and white just how inactive a typical day for you actually is. And for most people, it will surprise you how few steps you're actually doing. Now, you should use this as fuel, as motivation. The goal is to try and get closer to the level of incidental daily movement that was just normal life a couple of generations ago. So aim, if you can, for 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. Now, the third part of this pillar is your food diary. Before we change anything about what you eat, we need to actually understand what you're actually eating. So write everything down, and I mean everything. Every meal, every snack, every drink, and be specific. And as you do it, just look at the label of whatever you're eating. If it's ultra processed, so a long ingredients list full of things that you wouldn't find in your normal kitchen, like emulsifiers or stabilizers or flavorings or ingredients you can't pronounce, just put a big cross next to it. If you're cooking from scratch but using ultra processed ingredients like bacon or sausages or some sort of pie or anything that has ingredients that you don't know what they are or that you can't pronounce, then that also counts. So put a big cross next to that as well. By the end of these 5 days, you should have a fairly full food diary and also an estimate of what percentage of your diet is ultra-processed food. And honestly, most people are genuinely shocked when they do this exercise honestly. The average person in the US or the UK gets at least half of their calories from ultra-processed foods. Now, this percentage is what we're going to work on in pillar number 2. The goal for these 5 days is to be moving considerably more than you were at the start. Not structured exercise at this point, just more movement woven throughout your day. Fewer long stretches of sitting, more steps, more time on your feet. Drink more, move more, and arrive at day 10 with a food diary in your hand and a clear picture of where you're starting from. Moving on to pillar number 2, which is all about your diet and your blood sugar, which is days 11 through to 15. And this is the big one here. So let me just spend a bit of time here and try and cut through some of the noise around diet and kidneys, because a lot of this noise is quite misleading to a lot of people. So you've got your food diary from the last 5 days. Now we need to actually use it. So look at what you've written down and look at the crosses. So the goal from here is to shift your diet towards whole, single ingredient foods and away from ultra-processed ones. So an egg obviously is a single ingredient food. So is a chicken breast, so is a steak, so is an apple, so is a handful of oats or tinned sardines or sweet potato. These are all single ingredient foods. The more of your diet that actually looks like that, then the better your kidneys, your blood sugar, your blood pressure, and your long-term health will be. And alongside shifting what you eat, you need to think about when you're eating, what time of day you're eating as well. So try to have proper meals with gaps in between them rather than just constantly grazing throughout the day. You don't need to do anything extreme here, just 3 solid meals built around whole foods and periods in between where your body isn't constantly managing a blood sugar response. Just remember, it's okay to be hungry. Before all of this ultra-processed food came out in the 80s or 90s or whenever it was, we went hungry between meals, and that's a normal feeling to have. It's okay. Now, some people for this video will be expecting full recipes or meal plans at this point, and I completely get that. This is something that I would absolutely love to do at some point, but as you know, we are renovating our house at the moment, and I currently live in a caravan, so the kitchen setup isn't really great for something like that, but trust me, at some point, it will come. In the meantime, my honest advice is to simply start searching for Mediterranean-style recipes. Visit a website like themediterraneandish.com. I've got no sort of ties to that at all. It's just a really, really good website. Start watching meal idea videos, recipe videos as well. Try things out, use different ingredients that you've never cooked with before. Buy a really good quality extra virgin olive oil. I use citizensofOil.com, and basically what you need to do in this stage is try to start building a repertoire of dishes that you actually enjoy making. The goal for this is colour, variety, lots of plants and fibre and roughage in your diet, and trying to eat some form of nut or seed every single day. That's basically it. Get good at cooking. Get good at this skill of making good meals. Get curious about food. That curiosity is more powerful than any meal plan. You need to get to a point where you actually enjoy preparing foods and planning meals as well. Now, let me explain why this sort of dietary pattern matters so much for your kidneys specifically, because once you understand this mechanism, it's really hard to ignore. So the biggest dietary villain for your kidney health isn't salt like most people assume, it's actually sugar. The chronic overconsumption of refined sugar and ultra-processed carbohydrates drives insulin resistance, which drives high blood sugar, which drives the most common form of kidney damage that we see clinically. We know that when your blood sugar is persistently high, the tiny vessels that supply the kidney filtering units thicken and they scar over time, a process called glomerulosclerosis. In the early stages, the kidneys actually try to compensate by working harder and filtering more than they should, which is what we call hyperfiltration. And while that sounds like a good thing, it's actually burning the nephrons out even faster. It's the physiological equivalent of revving an engine at full throttle for years. Eventually, it will just break. Now, salt obviously does matter, but it primarily drives damage through your blood pressure. It causes the body to retain water temporarily, which increases your blood volume, which increases the pressure in those vessels. Now, yes, that is real and it needs addressing, but the mechanism is much slower, and the contribution of dietary salt to blood pressure, while meaningful, is often very overstated compared to the systemic metabolic damage that excess sugar does. Most people dramatically underestimate how much refined sugar they're actually consuming and dramatically overestimate how much salt is the problem. The dietary pattern with the strongest evidence base for kidney protection is the Mediterranean diet. And what this means is that the majority of your plate needs to be vegetables and legumes and whole grains and fruit. Now, your protein is mostly fish in the Mediterranean diet, like mackerel or sardines or salmon, but obviously chicken and eggs and occasional red meat is fine as well. Extra virgin olive oil is your primary fat, and try to get at least 4 tablespoons a day if you can. And what this means is that ultra-processed food is the genuine exception rather than the daily default. The reason all of this works goes far beyond just sort of any single ingredient. The high fiber improves insulin sensitivity. The polyphenols in the vegetables and the olive oil reduce inflammation in the kidney tissue. And the overall reduction in saturated fat protects the cardiovascular system, which in turn protects your kidney blood flow. It's the whole pattern working together. Now, on salt specifically, the approach with the best evidence for blood pressure is what we call the DASH diet. And I've mentioned this a few times before, and I'll put a link in the description below for this. And it works through 2 different mechanisms. Reducing sodium, yes, but also increasing potassium, which is the bit that most people miss. Potassium-rich foods like sweet potatoes or spinach or avocado, bananas, and beans, all of these have a direct blood pressure lowering effect because they help the kidneys excrete more sodium. Most adults should be under 6 grams of salt a day, and the majority of that isn't coming from what you add to the plate. It's hidden in bread, in processed meats, in sauces, and ultra-processed ready meals. So what you need to start doing is actually reading the labels of the things that you buy. Anything over 1.5 grams of salt per 100 grams is pretty high, to be honest. So days 11 to 15 is to use your food diary, shift towards whole single ingredients food. So days 11 to 15 is all about using that food diary, shifting towards whole single ingredient foods, cut the obvious refined sugars, swap processed carbohydrates for whole food versions, check your labels for hidden salt, introduce the potassium-rich foods that we just mentioned, and eat proper meals with gaps in between them. You don't need to be perfect at this point. You just need to actually start. And then over time, work on this habit even more to the point where most of what you eat is single ingredient whole foods. Right then, so pillar number 3 is all about your blood pressure management. And this is day 16 to 20. So by now, you should have your blood pressure number from week 1. You should have an average across morning and evening over a few days. So let's talk about what to actually do with it. So if it's above 130 over 80 regularly, then this needs addressing. The kidneys are packed with tiny, delicate blood vessels, and sustained high pressure physically damages them over time. It's really slow and it's often silent, but it's relentless. It never really stops if your blood pressure is consistently high. And the damage is what we call bidirectional. So high blood pressure damages the kidneys, and damaged kidneys also struggle to regulate blood pressure. So the 2 conditions amplify each other in this vicious cycle that never really stops. Now, the good news is that the dietary changes from pillar 2 are already working on your blood pressure, whether you can feel it or not. Reducing ultra-processed food, cutting down sodium, increasing potassium, all of this is pushing in the right direction. But there's more that you can do in this window. So alcohol significantly raises blood pressure, and it's worth being honest about it at this point. The current evidence is that the safe level is lower than what we used to think. And for someone with compromised kidney function, reducing or even removing alcohol altogether is a really meaningful intervention. The other thing to really think about at this point is your stress levels. Most people underappreciate just how important this is. What we know, and what I've mentioned many times before, is that chronic psychological stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, and it keeps your cortisol elevated and raises your blood pressure for prolonged periods. Things like simple breath work throughout the day, getting outside in the fresh air, whatever works for you. And there are lots and lots of things I could talk about here, but I'm trying to keep this video as short as I can. All of this will help your blood pressure. The other thing that I need to mention here is that if you are on blood pressure medication, then you must not just stop taking it because you've started eating better or you've started actually thinking about the lifestyle factors here. That could honestly be quite dangerous. Make sure that you speak to a doctor first before reducing your dose or trying to come off it altogether. Make the lifestyle changes first, gather your data, and at day 30, go back to your doctor with your blood pressure readings and your blood test results and have a proper conversation. Because if you've genuinely brought your blood pressure down through lifestyle changes, then yes, absolutely, there is a chance that you could come off your medication entirely, but that has to be done under medical supervision. Pillar number 4 is all about exercise now, and this runs from day 21 to day 25. So by now, you should be moving more throughout the day. So the steps, the breaking up of sitting, walking after meals, taking the stairs where you can. But this pillar is about building on that with structured exercise. And we need to be very honest here at this point because this one is different from everything else in this plan so far. So hydration, diet, sleep, these are things that you're already doing in some form, just sort of doing differently. But exercise, if you're not currently doing it, requires carving out actual new time in your week. So this means reprioritizing if you're busy. And look, I say this from personal experience, which is that exercising in your lounge or your bedroom doesn't last for most people. I can't really do this at home. Now, if you genuinely love a home workout routine, then great, just keep that going. That is fantastic. But for most people, you need to get out of your home environment. You need to separate exercise physically, mentally from the comfort and distractions of your home life. If you're not exercising at the moment, then it's probably at least partly because you don't really enjoy it yet, right? Well, doing it on the sofa next to the TV or in the bedroom next to the bed is unlikely to change that. Now, the easiest solution for most people is to actually join a gym. And I get completely that that sounds like a big step for some people. And yes, it costs a bit of money, but in the grand scheme of things, because of what it does to your health, I don't think it's personally that expensive. There are a lot of cheap gyms out there, maybe £30 a month, depending on where you live. It's the equivalent of a couple of flat whites a week. So you need to make it a priority that sits near the top of your list. If you have to get up an hour earlier occasionally, then do it. If you have to rearrange social plans sometimes, then it's worth it for the years that you are adding to your life. In terms of actually what to do once you're in the gym, then a combination that works really well for kidney health is aerobic exercise alongside resistance training. The aerobic side, whether that's running or cycling or swimming or on the rowing machine, which is so good for you. I used to row at university, or whatever gets your heart rate up. What this does is it improves your insulin sensitivity. It lowers your blood pressure, both acutely after each session and chronically over time. And it also reduces systemic inflammation, which is increasingly understood to be an independent driver of kidney function decline over time. Now, the resistance training side of things, so lifting weights, body weight work, using resistance bands, anything that makes you pull or push really hard, what this does is it builds and preserves muscle mass, which is one of the most powerful levers for your long-term metabolic health and insulin sensitivity. And I've done a couple of videos on muscle and resistance training in the past if you want to check those out. Now, the two of these work together in a way that neither does alone. For the aerobic side, what they say is 150 minutes of moderate intensity per week. This is what the evidence supports. So that's roughly half an hour, 5 days a week, or 22 minutes every single day if you can, but obviously not many people can. Now, for resistance training, what they say is 2 sessions a week covering the major muscle groups is enough to produce meaningful benefits. If your current fitness level is pretty low, then just start where you are. Anything is better than nothing. You don't have to do all of that if you're not used to it. Just start gradually and increase over time. The trajectory matters far more than where you're starting from. Okay, so pillar number 5. So this is all about your sleep and your medication review. And this runs from day 26 all the way to day 30. So let's talk about your sleep first. So what we know is that sleep quality is independently associated with faster progression of kidney disease. And it all comes down to this hormonal system called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system that regulates your blood pressure and your fluid balance. So overnight in healthy sleep, your blood pressure naturally dips. That's normal. This is what we call nocturnal dipping, and it's really protective. When sleep is disrupted or shortened, then this dip doesn't really happen properly. Blood pressure stays elevated overnight and your kidney stress accumulates over months and years. So if you got a fitness watch back in pillar 1, then you'll already have some data on your sleep. How long you're actually sleeping, how often you're waking, and whether there are patterns worth paying attention to. So for example, if you're waking up to use the toilet halfway through the night, then this is something that you can address during the day. What we say is that you need to aim for between 7 and 9 hours every single night if you can. You need consistent wake and sleep times. You need a dark and cool bedroom, no screens in the hour before bed. And all of this sounds really simple. It's really easy for me to say, but it sounds simple because it is. It's simple, but not necessarily easy in this day and age with our modern lifestyles. But this is something that most people can work on gradually over time. So let's move on to medication. So several commonly used medications are what we call nephrotoxic. They can damage the kidneys with regular long-term use. The main ones to be aware of are NSAIDs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, naproxen or diclofenac. And I actually did a video on ibuprofen about 3 weeks ago if you want to check that out. These are anti-inflammatory painkillers that most people can just buy over the counter. You do not need a prescription. You don't need a pharmacist or a doctor to write you a script for this. You can just buy it on your own. You can buy 2 boxes at a time, but they can really, really damage your kidneys and your stomach. They are quite dangerous medications. The way these medications work is by constricting the blood vessels that supply the kidneys, which reduces filtration pressure and over time causes real damage. So if you're taking ibuprofen or naproxen regularly, then this needs a conversation with your doctor. Now, there are other alternatives to these NSAID medications. The obvious one is paracetamol, which is a gentle painkiller, but the other one is physiotherapy for any musculoskeletal issue. And most people, from my experience, don't engage with physio anywhere near long enough. Now, there are some other medications worth knowing about, so some long-term antibiotics, certain diabetes medications in specific clinical situations, and also contrast dyes used in some medical imaging or CTs that can also affect your kidney function. Now, obviously, what I'm not saying is to stop these without talking to your doctor. What I'm saying is that you need to bring this up with your doctor as part of your day 30 review or around that time if you can. I get that not everybody can just get a GP appointment like that, but if you can, go in with your blood results, your blood pressure readings, your medication list, and ask the question, given that I'm trying to actively protect my kidney function, is there anything here on this list that I need to change or reduce or come off completely? At this point on day 30, we move into phase 3 of this entire system, which is all about rechecking your numbers. Now, if you can't get these blood tests through your GP, then it's really worth considering paying privately. Now, I completely get that this isn't how the system should be, and everybody is different, but most of us wouldn't think twice about spending money on supplements or health foods or protein or a new pair of running shoes. So a private blood test is sort of the same kind of investment, except it actually tells you what's going on inside your body. Now, there are lots of clinics around the country that would do this for you for a relatively modest cost. In my opinion, it's a very good investment in your health. What you want to do at this point is to measure your eGFR again and your HbA1c and also your blood pressure again. And sit those 2 sets of data side by side, one from the beginning and then one from day 30. And here's what you should honestly expect at this point. So your eGFR doesn't always move dramatically within 30 days. We know that kidneys respond quite slowly, and even just sort of plateauing and stabilization itself is a win. If your eGFR has improved a bit, then that is a fantastic win. The other thing is that your HbA1c reflects 3 months of blood sugar. So you're seeing an early trend rather than the full picture with that particular blood test. Your blood pressure is often where you'll see the most visible change in this time frame. It can move really dramatically within days or weeks of consistent dietary and lifestyle change. Use that as your early signal that the biology is responding. And then what happens is that the framework repeats. Check, implement, recheck, month after month until things start to really improve, and then you can recheck maybe every 6 months or a year or whatever. The important thing here is that this 30 days is to change your behaviours. We know that these behaviours will improve your kidney function in the vast majority of people. This is about building habits and making them sustainable over the next few months and years and decades. This isn't a one-time reset. This is a system for understanding what's actually happening inside your body and then responding to it. So after all of that, what actually comes after day 30? At this point, I need to be really honest with you because this is the part that most health videos conveniently leave out. 30 days, as I've just sort of alluded to, isn't enough to undo a lifetime of habits. It just isn't. What 30 days can do is prove to you that the biology responds, give you a framework that works, and show you what's possible. But day 30 clearly isn't the finish line. Day 30 is actually when the hard work starts, which is making these habits stick. The things that make these habits stick, in my opinion, are not willpower and discipline, but their genuine enjoyment and curiosity. Getting interested in cooking, really interested, not just eating differently, but learning how to cook very differently, trying Mediterranean recipes using ingredients that you've never used before, building a repertoire of meals that you actually love making. That curiosity is what makes a good diet sustainable long term. And also finding a form of exercise that you actually look forward to, or at least genuinely don't dread, whether that's cycling or swimming, hiking or lifting weights, whatever it is. And what I would also say here is that fitness classes in a gym are fantastic for anybody who isn't used to it. The vast majority of these are so welcoming to newbies. It needs to be something that gets embedded into your life and your routine, not because you're forcing it, but because it's become sort of part of who you are. You are now someone who looks after your health. You are now someone who wants to live longer. You are now someone who does something every day or every week that is actively improving your health. The specific type of exercise matters far less than whether you'll still be doing it in 5 years' time. The main thing is consistency. So find your version of it. Join the gym, get outside, move your body in a way that feels genuinely good every day. Those two things, which are a love of cooking and a love of movement, alongside staying hydrated and sleeping well and keeping an eye on your medications that might be quietly doing some harm, and also rechecking your numbers regularly, are, in my view, the most powerful long-term levers for everything we've talked about today. Not just for your kidneys, but for every part of your body. Everything in this video, the Mediterranean diet, managing your blood sugar, controlling your blood pressure, exercising, sleeping better, staying hydrated, checking your medications, none of it only helps your kidneys. All of it reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. All of it reduces your chronic inflammation, which is implicated in cancer, in dementia, in accelerated biological aging. And I talk about inflammation all the time. The kidneys are simply a window into your overall health, and it's really useful that we can measure the function of your kidneys. When they're struggling, the rest of the body is usually struggling as well, even when you can't feel it yet. When you fix the conditions that are quietly damaging your kidneys, then you are fixing the conditions that are quietly damaging every part of you. And the final thing I would say here is that you do not need expensive supplements or powders or drinks or anything else that other people on YouTube are trying to sell you. Just start with the boring, basic, evidence-based stuff that we talked about in this video. Get your blood tests first, work through the 5 pillars, and then recheck. And just see how you feel at the end of that 30 days.